So I'll just go ahead and begin. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Ildi Mouris, and I am from edX. And I am the training manager there at edX, as you heard earlier. And so my role there is to work with course teams and help ensure that they learn the platform, but also to make sure that they understand what are some of our recommended design best practices and methodologies for online course design and development. So just to give me a better idea of who we have in the room here, if people could raise their hands if they've ever built a MOOC before, that would be great. Just to give me a sense. Okay, a few of you. Okay, if not a MOOC, how about any kind of online course? Okay, excellent, great. So I think what you'll find, there isn't a great amount of difference between the instructional design best practices for building a MOOC versus an online course. But we will talk about some different applications and some key features that might make a little bit of a difference. I just want to run through our afternoon agenda. So as you know, we're running a little over time, which I guess is pretty common. And so I'm going to try to accelerate the sessions, but try to make sure that we do wrap up by 18 o'clock. I know that I will be done talking by then. I'm sure everyone here will be quite done by then as well. And we are going to mix it up. I am joined by my two colleagues over here, Mark and Zach, and we're going to trade off presenting. But we also are going to ask you to do some work as well. I see there's a great table here. They got their laptops open and ready to go. This is what we're looking for. We really do want to make this as hands-on as we possibly can, given the amount of time and the amount of people, which will be a challenge. So if you have a laptop, please open it up and go ahead and navigate to our LMS site, which is edx.org. And if you don't yet have an account on edx.org, you can go ahead and work on creating an account and logging into the site. I think it's important as course developers and instructors to understand just a little bit about what the student experience is before we do a deeper dive into the course development process. So the afternoon flow, just to review, we're going to do a quick overview of online course design and development best practices. Mark is going to talk about blended learning, because we understand many of you are very interested in that. Then we're going to have a session on learner engagement and communication, again, from the perspective of somebody running a course on edx.org. Then we're going to close the afternoon with some best practices and presentations around media best practices. That's going to include video, animation, really a variety of ways to engage learners in an online course. And then we're going to close the day with really more a nuts and bolts session of the tools that you're going to need to know how to use to actually run a course on the edX platform, again, from the instructor perspective. Any questions on that? Raise your hand, don't be shy. You'll find that we're very collaborative. You know, you can interrupt if something we say doesn't make any sense to you. Chances are good I probably didn't explain it well enough, so I really do want to hear from you and get your questions if you have any as we go along. The other thing I want to mention is all of the PowerPoint presentations that we're showing will be made available to you through a couple of means. We do have a shared Google Drive that we can share out with everyone, and we know that the folks at Israel X and Digital Israel will have access to your email addresses, so we can share it that way. They're also going to be available online, which we'll show you how to access a little bit later this afternoon. Switch microphones now. I just want to go over, at a very, very high level, the different kinds of course types that are available on the edX platform. So again, quick show of hands. How many people have seen this slide before? Okay, many of you. So just to touch base on that, as we all know, we have started off a few years ago with this idea of a traditional MOOC. Let's take a university course, let's put it online. Let's run it at the same timeline as our university schedule, which in America starts in September. Then the next round usually starts in January or February. And let's have people join the course at that time. These courses that were a little more traditionally structured did tend to have high enrollment for the more popular professors or course content. Many of these people in these earlier MOOCs have received certificates, and that's a continuing trend as well. But essentially what we found back in the day was MOOCs were essentially just an online version of a college course. So that concept has certainly evolved and changed. We're going to have a whole other session on blended learning. But what we've seen from many university partners that we work with who are just starting out with MOOCs, this is a great way to kind of dip your big toe into MOOC development. Maybe you have faculty member or instructors or even leadership who aren't quite sure about how to use a MOOC at their university. They don't really fully understand it. So in those scenarios, we've often found that starting off with a blended learning approach is a very successful way to go. It gives the people at the university an opportunity to understand how it works, how to build an online course, but really kind of limiting it originally to just the students in the classroom. Another way about this we talked about earlier today is this idea that we at edX called the flipped classroom. And again, the whole idea here is the time for the student is spent outside of the classroom watching the instructor or the professor deliver their content, and then the time in the classroom is spent actually talking about the content. And the idea here is it's much more value add for the students as well as the professors. Louvain X, we have a very strong European partner community, and Louvain has been very involved for many years, and this is the approach that they took. And in fact, they then took that content from this flipped classroom model and turned that into a MOOC ultimately as well. Self-paced MOOCs. So again, going back to what I was saying earlier about this idea of the traditional MOOC being run in university schedule, well, you know, it's no surprise that the majority of people out there really don't want to wait till, in our case, September or January to take an online course. Most adults want to learn what they want to learn, when they want to learn it. So we are actively working with our course teams to transition their instructor-led courses to more of a self-paced format and building out increased features and functionality that will support a slightly different modality. You can still have moderation, you can still have learner engagement, you can still have, you know, questions answered by the students. It's just a slightly different approach and way of thinking about the course design. We highlight it now, though, at the start of the course design process, because this is the kind of thing you want to figure out in the beginning and not so much at the end. This course, The Science of Everyday Thinking, was originally run as instructor-led. It was transitioned to a self-paced. So if you're curious about looking at one example, that's one that you can look at. The other kind of course structure that we have at edX is what we call the XSeries Program. And really all the XSeries is, it's a series of courses. It could be about 4, 5, or 6. We don't have sort of a set number. But the idea is that the content is related to each other, it supports each other, and students who complete all the courses in an XSeries are eligible not just to get a certificate for completion and paying for a verified certificate for each course, they can get another certificate that says they completed the whole X-Series. So we do a lot of learner research, surveys. We really want to understand what our audience wants and what their needs are. And we did get a fair amount of feedback saying that yes, they would be very interested in taking an X-Series course that would really demonstrate that they have some level of proficiency in a topic more so than just one course. So again, if this is something that you're interested, you can certainly talk to us more about it after the fact, but it's something to start thinking about earlier on in the design process rather than later. I think we already covered course credit pretty well. I just want to highlight the fact that this is really an area of growth for us. We are experimenting with many different models with US partners who are willing to offer credit for students successfully completing courses online. And there's a number of models out there. Arizona State University was mentioned. The MIT MicroMasters program was mentioned. The third one we didn't really talk about so much. Charter Oak State College, they are a college based in Connecticut, and they're very aligned around the mission of trying to meet the needs of adult students who haven't completed college for a variety of reasons. And as we all know, there's a very, very high percentage of people out there who start college but never actually finish. And so what they have done is they've actually reviewed a number of courses on the edX.org platform and have determined which ones they would be willing to offer up for credit. So this would be credit that a student could take after completing one of these courses, the credit would be from Charter Oak College. It wouldn't necessarily be from the course team and the organization that built that course. So again, new model, very interesting. It's something that we're still testing out, and we are looking forward to getting back to you on the success of that model. Okay, so I just want to again touch base on learning design. I think most people in this room have a pretty good understanding of instructional design. Certainly the focus of this session is not to teach instructional design in great depth, but I do want to mention just a few things that we do ask course teams to think about and encourage them to be mindful of during the course development process. So again, rethinking what you've done before, even if you've done an online course before and you're considering moving it onto the edX platform, this is a perfect opportunity to rethink the approach, maybe try different videos, maybe edit them. It's a chance to reinvent your course if that's where you are. Or if you have content, this is your opportunity to think about how's that course content best going to be emulated in the online environment. Your audience ultimately is going to be very, very diverse. Some courses from IsraelX will be offered on the edX.org platform, in addition to many being offered on the IsraelX platform. So again, just keep that in mind when you're during the writing stage and the design stage. And again, obviously, we always encourage people to start with the learning objectives and then the assessments and build out the content from there. It's this approach called backwards design that we really encourage course teams to think about and consider, as it really helps ensure that the content is in alignment with the learning outcomes. Again, just to reiterate the diversity of the audience, the good news is you're going to have the capability on the IsraelX platform to offer courses in a variety of languages, which I think is a very exciting chance to reach out to learners and students that might not normally have access to this kind of course content. Okay, so I just want to touch upon again some instructional design practices and approaches that we've seen course teams be successful with. So as we know, there are many learning management systems out there. They all have their strengths and their challenges. And we think that there's certain approaches to learning design that work particularly well on the edX platform. And we also really want to encourage course teams, again, to think really big and maybe step out of the box a little bit when it comes to their curriculum design. So this concept, universal design for learning, was sort of kind of invented or taken to the next level, I should say, by Professor David Rose at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard. His research started out looking at what kind of technology tools would help students, like young students with disabilities, and what he found was essentially what's good for students with disabilities is good for all. So he talks about when you're building curriculum, when you're building content, to really think about it in 3 different ways. The first way is really more about engagement, and this kind of goes back to the talk I gave earlier today about motivation. What is the motivation for the student to take your course? If you don't really know who your students are or what the motivation is, it's going to be hard to understand what content is going to be appropriate for them. Once you've determined the motivation for the learner, the next thing to consider is how is your course content going to be represented in the course? And we obviously encourage multiple modals of representation of content. Of course, no one course is going to have every single way of presenting all content at all times, but we do encourage people to think a little more broadly about the kind of people accessing the course. Maybe they're visual learners, maybe they're auditory learners, maybe they have accessibility challenges. You probably know your students better than I, but it comes back to how you build the content. And then the how of learning really speaks to, once you've understood what kind of content that's going to go into your course, how do you want students to express that they've learned what you want them to learn? And again, we encourage multiple modes of expression, again, depending upon the audience of your students. If you want to look at an example of a course that we think emulates some of these universal design for learning best practices, we encourage you to look at this University of Queensland course on English prep. And they essentially group the content around listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. And it's sort of very nicely organized. They actually built some custom tools to help enable this to happen. I'm sure everyone in this room has heard of active learning, but again, just to mention it, active learning is, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much anything other than sitting passively the way all of you are right now, staring at the screen. So again, we want to come up with ways to put activities in the course that engage the learner in a way other than looking at a professor talking on a video at you. And there's different ways you can do this. You can present content in a variety of engaging ways. There's a lot of tools out there, and then you can encourage students to reflect upon the content that they have seen through the discussion forums. I think we all know that the research is pretty strong on this. I just want to call out one research point towards the bottom. This is research done by Philip Gao, and he did some research at edX looking at some courses and came up with this video length range of 3 to 9 minutes as really being optimal. Now, that's not to say if you have an incredible video that runs for 15 minutes, no one's going to watch it. But we are saying that, generally speaking, people have short attention spans, and rather than have one long video, we think it's a best practice to break it up, intersperse it with other activities, check for understanding, and other kind of content to try to avoid trapping people in this super long video they're expected to watch. They do. So, like I said, if you have an amazing piece of footage and people are engaged, definitely use it. You know, I think that movies have a level of entertainment value that maybe MOOCs don't always have the budget to deliver on, unfortunately. We'll get there, hopefully. Example of active learning we want to encourage you to check out, and you'll get to do that in just a few minutes, is a course called The Science of Happiness. They are a really fun and engaged course team. They're based out of Berkeley, California. A lot of the professors involved in this course are also part of this organization called the Greater Good Science Center. So they are constantly putting in articles, context about wellness, how to be happy, how to deal with stress. Certainly in America, this is a hugely popular course because we have a lot of challenges in that area. And after all, who doesn't want to be happy? So I think that they do a really good job of also helping learners gauge their level of happiness by having these weekly exercises and self-assessments on that. Mastery learning. So depending on your course content, this might be the way to go. And the whole idea here is that you present content in a structured way so that a student really has to start at the beginning of the course and progress through to get to higher order thinking skills and to get to higher level of content rather than just sort of giving smaller chunks. So again, I'm saying this just as one example. Your course may not lend itself well to mastery learning at all, and we have a lot of courses out there that don't. I think that there's definitely a strong argument to be made back to the adult learners who want to learn what they want to learn when they want to learn it, to build content in more of a modular fashion, enabling people to come in, maybe not take the entire course from start to finish, but they can take some of it and still get a lot of value out of it. But, you know, I think that there are some courses where it's pretty much a requirement to have some degree of mastery learning. Harvard's Introduction to Computer Science is certainly one example. It would certainly be hard to come in at the end of that course and understand what was going on without having completed the earlier steps. For peer learning, we have a number of tools and functionality in the LMS, discussion boards, other ways to integrate community building features and functionality. And again, this may not be appropriate for your course, but it's something to think about if so. And it's really just a way to enable your students to learn from each other, not completely from the instructor or the professor. And there's different ways that that can be set up. We have a new feature, we're still kind of testing it out, called Teams, and we rolled out a beta version of it with McGill University, and they built a course called Social Learning for Social Impact. Of course, because we don't have enough MOOC acronyms, we have to come up with yet another one. So they called theirs GROOC for a group, online course. And what they found was they had very, very active, smaller, more focused discussion forums. The main difference being that students were able to self-select which group they wanted to be with and talk about these topics around social impact. And that kind of content, again, lent itself very well to peer learning. A/B testing. Certainly outside of the scope of what we expect to cover today, this is really more to let you know we have this capability. It's the kind of thing that we recommend course teams do if they have a data czar available at their organization, if they are focused on research, if you really want to understand what kind of instructional design methodology is going to work better for engagement and for success. You can certainly set up A/B testing within your course and evaluate that over time. So just to close this session, and so again, just want to emphasize, rethink what you've done. If you have course content, this is a great time to set it up differently. We want you to learn a little bit more about what the edX platform is capable of to help inform you in terms of what options you have in reversioning your course and building a new course. And again, to just consider the course from the learner perspective as an overarching experience rather than just certain pieces of content throughout. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a chance to actually get onto the platform and look at some courses. So if you haven't already, and hopefully most people have computers, if you don't have a computer, you could probably do this on your mobile device. We do have an app that you can download if you just search on the edX app. It's not a fully featured version of edX.org, but it will allow you to look at videos and basic assessments. Over time, we're going to build it out some more. And we have some courses listed here that you can search on in edX.org in the upper right-hand corner. As you can see over there, I want to learn about is actually a search box. Or if there's a course you'd rather look at, go right ahead. We're not going to prevent you. And I want you to actually work with people at your table. If you don't have a lot of people at your table, you can join another. But this is where we start to get a little hands-on. I want you to go in, look at the courses, and discuss the design strategies. Do you see that course team use mastery learning? Did they really rely upon peer learning? Or what was their approach to active learning and student engagement in that course? And then we'll do a quick go around, and I want to hear from all of you what your thoughts are on some of these courses. Okay? Any questions? All right, let's take it away. So I already got my first excellent question, which was, do I have to enroll to look at the course? The answer is yes, you do have to enroll, but that's okay, nothing bad will happen, you can unenroll later. Just to let you know, if you don't want to receive the emails, if you deselect the box, of course they would not be happy if I said this, but if you deselect the box below the enroll now, you will not get any emails from that course team. So you can go ahead and enroll now. To get into the course, this is just one example. You can go ahead and audit the course if they have a verified certificate option. And once you're in the course, you're going to want to click on the course button in the upper left-hand corner, and that will get you to the content. Okay, so over here is the course button. On the left is the course outline. So again, this is the English language skills course that I said was, a pretty good example of universal design for learning. And they have their content organized by these 4 skills around English language acquisition. So I just want people to go in and look at one lesson and navigate through the learning sequence, this bar up here at the top, and look at it as a course critic. What approach did this course team take? Did they have interesting, engaging videos? Did they have check for understandings in between? I want to hear what you think of these courses. You'll probably see things you like, and you'll probably see things you don't like so much. I'm assuming everyone's had an opportunity to look at least one course. If you haven't, I encourage you to take the time to do that later. So now is the time when I start picking on people. And what I had asked everyone to do is to pick a course that they're interested in, look at one lesson or a portion of a lesson, and try to understand what design approach that course team used to build the course. Did they incorporate active learning? Was there engaging content? Was there discussion forums for peer learning? And maybe just talk about what you as a student experienced actually taking that course. What worked for you, what didn't work for you when you were looking at that content. So I'm first going to start off by asking for any volunteers. If anyone just wants to say a few words about what they looked at. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, do I need to start walking around and picking on people? Because I will. Don't be shy. Oh, thank you. Saved by the gentleman. Okay, so if you can just describe the course that you looked at and what your feedback is on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi. I've got a couple of actually questions or remarks about it. First remark, I don't understand. First remark is about the download process, meaning the offline uses of the course. I saw that you can actually download chunks like a video with a transcript, which is actually beautiful, the interactive transcript. Just love that, the ability not only to be able to read, but be able to jump one sentence to the other. That's great. But to download it not as one video and one transcript, but as a unit or chunk of units, or the whole course actually, for offline usage. Is it at all possible? That's question number one.
I promise this isn't planned that I was sitting right next to you and going to help provide an answer. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So to the question of how can you maybe work with offline content of people, especially if they don't have an internet connection to that. So we don't have a full solution for that. So you couldn't take an entire course in a fully offline mode. That said, what you can do is, as you mentioned, download individual videos. And one of the best things that you can do is through our mobile app. That's where you can download videos for entire sections, subsections. We'll go over some of that language of what I mean by those later. But essentially, you can download chunks of the course, the entire videos for those parts of the course. But for other parts, like obviously discussion forums, you'd want to have an internet connection for. And for the assessments, right now, those you still need an internet connection for. But the videos, the mobile app that we have is really designed for downloading lots of videos at once.
If I can continue, sorry. Yeah. Okay, my suggestion would be that not assessments and questions and drag and drops, things that are interactive, therefore you do need to have access to the online platform, but at least if you're talking about material, PDF files, images, any other type of files, I think it would make sense to be able to download those as well, besides the video themselves, just as a suggestion in parentheses. The syllabus at the end, where you've got the whole layout of the course. Suggestion again to have link from the syllabus to the particular units. So if I'm actually reading through the syllabus and I know that, oh, unit 4 is the one that I want to check, I don't have to get out of syllabus, go into the course, check where's unit 4 exactly, and remember what I was looking at, and my retention is 5 seconds, no more than that, and forget what I was at. So if I could have a link directly on the syllabus to jump to wherever I want to jump, that just makes sense in my mind. Oh, I was looking at that course. Yeah. I was just looking at learning the platform. That's it. I mean, and my third thing is just a question: would we have the ability to see how a course is being built, the actual platform of building the course? We'll be able to check it in practice here.
So thank you for the great feedback. So what I'm hearing you say is that for you as a student, you found it confusing that you had to actually jump around to different parts of the course to really get a full understanding of the content that was required of you to do in that particular lesson. A little bit, having the syllabus separate. So that to me sounds like maybe a little bit of a design flaw on that course team where maybe they should have had, because you can directly link to the syllabus, or you could have added a portion of it there. So that's good feedback, and that's something to, for everyone to think about when they're building their course and how to make sure that your content is all accessible. And then your other question about getting hands-on. So the goal of this afternoon's session is to show you the edX platform, talk about some of the features and functionality for people running the course. So it's more designed for instructors as well as course team developers. Tomorrow's session is all more hands-on for course team builders, developers, not so much instructors, facilitators, unless they're also developers, okay? So I hope that answers that question. We just need more time to get into the hands-on portion, but that is our plan. See you tomorrow, great. Any other questions or comments or feedback from anybody? Take one or two more.
I yell, no problem. Because what Yossi was saying was the student should be in charge to decide what he or she wants to learn and can then go and find the things that they want to do as they do, which is totally legitimate. But if you're building a course, you have an idea, you have a conception of what you want to have happening. And you expect someone to actually follow that through in a particular order. So as a learner, you're going against yourself as a teacher.
Comes back, Jay, to what we saw this morning about what is the purpose of a teacher and the students and how the course is being built. Is it being completely managed by the lecturer from A to Z, or is it a bunch of content that the students will decide what he wants and how he or she wants to learn, which level, which direction, up, down, left, right, or jump from one associatively from one topic to another, the way he or she wants to learn.
Without yelling or with yelling. Okay, I think the response to that has to be that most of us here at the moment, if I look around, are people who are working in educational frameworks where there is an expectation that the person enrolled is someone who is supposed to follow a certain format and to get to the end of that course in a certain time with a certain achievement. Because of that, what we are actually trying to build in our michlalot is somewhat different than what's being offered to us here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I think that raises some good points, but I think what I'd want to highlight to people, and definitely what you'll be seeing over the next sort of few hours and tomorrow, is that there's a lot of flexibility in this platform about how you are actually going to design your course, and towards those outcomes, how you're going to look at it. And that's why also we showed a number of different courses that you can enroll in. Because if you enroll in each one of those courses, if you enroll in 4 courses, you're going to see 4 different course designs within there. And we want to give people that ability, that flexibility to do that. And so we'll show you some more about how to do that too in the coming modules. I know we got one in the back.
Thank you. I'll move from this. I actually have 2 questions. The first one, we're thinking of a course designed for the Ministry of Commerce and for entrepreneurs and business owners. And there are different types of people who needs to take this entrepreneurs course, and they have different needs. Now on the face-to-face course, they have no choice. They bring them all in the same room, so if we're talking about products, then it doesn't interest half of the class, but what can you do? Is there a possibility in the edX to have a questionnaire at the beginning of the course which asks you how far along are you in your entrepreneurship? Or you just a person with an idea, or have you already started your business? What kind of business do you have? And according to that questionnaire, to navigate you to a course that is designed specially for your needs, in particular parts, but will keep you with the big cohort on other areas that you may benefit from people with other perspectives. So this is my first question. And the second question is, on the same course, we would like people to be able to be exposed to small portions of the course. So if a business owner thinks, My only problem is I don't know how to read my financial reports. So this is all I want to learn how to do. And then he may find this course on the internet and Google, take that particular course, and may choose to take further portions of the whole course or choose not to. But is it possible to be accessible not to the whole course, but just to a portion of it that a person may feel is relevant to him at a particular time, and not just the title, the whole title?
Might actually see if my colleague Mark Rudnick is around too, because I think he can help answer the first question. Okay, so while he's walking over, because he has actually a good example about a course where they had different pathways for different types of students. That's a bit more manual. I'd also encourage you to look at some of the existing entrepreneurship material out there. So there's actually quite a few good courses on edX about that too. Of course, I want to advertise edX courses, but there's going to be a lot of other courses from different platforms. So that's just in general to say, if you're teaching a topic, see how other people have taught it themselves. Go in there, see what works, what doesn't work, what you like as a learner. I will let then Mark address the question about sabermetrics. Is that a good?
Okay. So I think there are a lot of different ways. Again, to Zach's point earlier, the platform is flexible in a way that can allow you to really sort of design. I think what we're really talking about here is sort of learner pathways. An example that I can tell you that may be sort of at least in the direction towards what you're thinking about, a course from Boston University on sabermetrics, which is the science of baseball statistics. So they offered this course, and the course was really popular, but they knew there were sort of particular sort of subsections of the population who were going to be interested in a course like this. Some people were joining just because they were sort of baseball junkies. They really liked baseball and wanted to hear the baseball stories. Others were joining as statisticians. Others actually were joining as computer scientists. And so what they did, because knowing sort of that they were going to have those different audiences, they actually designed their content in such a way that they sort of built in particular sections of the course, and that among sort of in the overall umbrella of any particular topic area, they actually designed content specifically for that particular audience. We also have functionality that we call cohorting, and I think we'll talk about that actually a little bit later tomorrow if you'll be here. And so there are ways to actually build in sort of unique aspects of the course, both from a content perspective and also from a sort of learner engagement discussion area perspective, that you can actually create sort of unique environments within a larger course that would be applicable just to a smaller subsection. I think there's still, to be open and honest with you, I think there's still a long way to go towards making that really easily designable and sort of having frameworks for doing that. But because the platform is very flexible, there's definitely opportunities to do that sort of in your own way.
Thank you, Mark and Zach, and great conversation, great questions. And I would love to continue this, but I think in the interest of time, we're going to actually move on to the next session on